Hi everyone, welcome back to the Scottish Paranormal Podcast. I'm your host Chris, and here we delve into the multitude of strange occurrences that happen in Scotland and beyond. You can contact us with your accounts at the Scottish Paranormal Podcast at gmail.com. You can find us on all social media channels, and you can contact us by either means. If you want to help the show grow, please like, subscribe and share wherever you pick up the content. This could be via audio or via YouTube. We'll get right into it now, and we'll welcome our next guest into the show. Tonight's guest, we've got Gary Biltcliffe on the show. He's a researcher and author of Earth Mysteries and Ancient Sites. Numerous number of books out, volumes 1, 2 and 3, The Spiny Albion, Holy Axis, and a few others more. Welcome to the show tonight, Gary. How are you doing?
Thank you. Great, thank you. I'm looking forward to this evening.
Yeah, I do appreciate you coming on, and Happy New Year to you as well, because it's quite early on in the new year.
Happy New Year to you too, and all the listeners.
Yeah, so just I'd like you, just if you want to kind of invite you into the show, and if you want to just explain to the guests a wee bit about yourself and how you came into researching the Earth Mysteries and ancient sites and becoming an author and that kind of stuff as well.
Yes. Most people know me and my partner Caroline Hall from our book The Spine of Albion, which has become increasingly popular since its publication in 2012. Myself, I'm from Lancashire, and I grew up until I was in my 30s in that Lancashire area, Cumbria. Then moved down to Dorset, where I began publishing Earth Mysteries and researching the Spine of Albion, leading eventually to the Holy Axis, which we've written recently. But yeah, we've both of us have always been different to others. We've always sensed a little bit more of the electromagnetic spectrum, if you like, than other people. So we see and hear things others don't, which makes it difficult to fit in, we always find. But that's why we sort of live apart from many people. Yeah, it's great because we both had time on our hands and self-employed, so it enabled us to do the research and we've not been tied down with mortgages and having marriage and children. So we've had lots of time to create a good archive of knowledge, and we're free to do that because we're not academics. And I wanted to be an academic when I was younger, but the so-called truths they were telling me were not my truths. Even in history, they were telling me that King Harold was killed with an arrow in his eye, and I just intuitively felt that wasn't right. So I suppose I've always gone with my intuition, and it's always got me in the right place. So here I am.
Well, what initially made you just take the jump into researching the Earth Mysteries?
I think I was always told from when I was a young age that I have to look out for the open doors, and that there'll come a time in my life where there'll be an opportunity for me to do this. But I had to break away from family, like in the Grail Mysteries. The Grail quester has to really, get away from his family and go out and quest on his own, like a vision quest, if you like.
Yeah.
And that opportunity came for me when I was 33, which is a key number, as most people know. It was a chance meeting, a dream. Lots of messages were coming through, both physically and non-physically, which led to a meeting, which led to somebody telling me that I was supposed to be doing this, and then looking into, because of ley lines and earth energies, I was always interested in them because I could feel them, sense them, see them occasionally, where other people couldn't. You know, they take 10 people out of off the street and give them a dowsing rod. You know, maybe 1 out of 10 will douse an energy line, maybe 5 out of 10 a water line. But it's all about spectrums of energy and what people can, and where you are, how much you can pick up on. That's the problem. See, not everybody can dowse.
Yeah.
Not everybody can dowse earth energy lines, which is more the higher spectrum. Hamish Miller, the great dowser of earth energies, he had a near-death experience that allowed him to sense these dragon lines, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
And I took some lessons from him. It was great because he had one great dragon line run through his property called the Athena line, which is part of the Apollo axis that runs through Europe.
Yeah.
And he knew where it was, so he would get people to walk towards me, and I want you to visualize in your head the Athena current or a female energy line. And he knew the people who could dowse them because he knew where the line was. Nobody else did. So
Yeah.
it was a good way of practicing. But I realized then I could dowse all, and he did. And he sort of inspired me to help find the spine of Albion, which is the kind of the north-south equivalent of the Michael line that he discovered back in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
But a similar process. But again, I could do it, and it's not something I don't believe. It's my personal opinion. I don't think it's something you can teach. You can't teach a person to be psychic. I don't believe that is true.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can make them, or you can open that. You have to evolve in your own journey
Yeah.
to be able to become more psychic. You can't be told in a class or any method or even any magic stones to say that this is going to make you psychic.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It's evolution of the spirit, of the soul.
Mm-hmm.
It's raising your vibrations to the higher vibrations where these ley lines and earth energies exist.
Yeah, I totally agree with you with that. It's well, know that I'm psychic in regards to it, but it's with what I've read through the years and what I've researched as well myself, and it's definitely an evolutionary thing rather than somebody could give you or you could
Yes.
learn it. No, I mean, I think you could potentially learn it, but it would take time and it would take you
Yeah.
to evolve, and that would be you learning it through that kind of evolution of
Yes.
doing it. Um,
Yeah.
to
Yeah. I do
take,
believe. Yeah. Yeah.
sorry, on you go.
No, carry on. You're right.
So, in regards to going back to the books, so the spiny album, so I take it that the spine is a ley line, or is that a dragon ley line you call it?
Yeah. A lot of people are confused about the Leyland Earth Energy dragon line scenario. It's basically the straight line that runs through the landscape that connects with all these sites that you can draw on a map or Google Earth is known as a ley. Um, and the energies that are associated with that pathway are the energy lines. Often they are male and female, like along the Michael line.
Hmm.
And that conforms to the sort of figure of the caduceus in symbology, and also in DNA. And as we know now, the tubes that the Birkeland currents that run have been discovered by scientists recently that connect everything from planets. And I think these energy lines and particular pathways are similar to smaller Birkeland currents on the Earth itself. And I think plasma is the key to a lot of the mysteries, as we've been putting out in our new book, The Holy Axis. And I think it's a form of plasma that the energy lines are made from. The energy that's behind the energy lines, if you like, is a form of plasma.
Mm-hmm.
And that plasma has intelligence. And those who are psychic can actually communicate with the lines. And which is what we hear from people all over the world. They're saying, I can communicate with this line. How can that be? This psychic has intelligence.
Mm-hmm. With
But
the
it's
in regards to doing that psychically and you learning it through the years, with dowsing and such like, and moving on through there, um, is I mean, because like science is now, the technology wise is a bit more advanced than it was maybe back in the day.
yes.
Are you finding now that there's more an incline for a scientific study that's going to be able to recordable more data on this because of the technology that people have today.
Absolutely. I think science will catch up with metaphysics. Um, the two will come together. I think a lot of the UFO phenomena, the poltergeist, supernatural phenomena, it can all be explainable in science soon. It can now, actually. I
Yeah.
mean, if we understand that everything around us isn't as real as we think it is, and only just what we see in our narrow spectrum of vision.
Yeah.
Even animals around us see more than we do.
Totally.
You know that if anybody's got a cat
Yeah.
and you watch your cat following something across the room, and it spooks the hell out of you. And
Yeah.
even some cats are more psychic than others, I've found.
We had that back in the day in my old house where I stayed, and we had the cats and dogs following the same
Mm,
thing in the room multiple times.
yeah,
And it wasn't like a flyer or anything like that. It was like they
yeah.
seen something that was there.
Well,
And property was just
yes, and you probably had a lot of that around you anyway, because I've found throughout my research, those people who are doing this kind of research attract sort of energies and supernatural energies to them as well.
Mhm.
So you end up like John Keel, the great researcher, says, the more you research this stuff, the more it notices you.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's like you when you stare at the abyss looks back. That comment. But there was one thing I was going to say when you were talking about before the conversation we had before in regards to being psychically aware as a child.
Yeah,
I do believe that quite a lot of children are aware of that when they're younger, and some tend to ignore it, and some tend to it still stays with them when they pass a certain age.
yeah.
And some it goes, but I'm a great believer in that quite a lot of kids have got it at that age and when they're pretty young anyway.
Yeah,
Um,
I think there comes a point where if you want to fit in, you're going to have to sort of keep quiet about it, or put it to the back of your head. Because if you start talking to even a 5-year-old and you're telling your mum and dad that you've seen things, they'll say, "Oh, don't be silly,
yeah.
shut up," or something, and eventually you shut it off.
Mhm.
But luckily, I had a psychic grandmother who would encourage that from me. So thanks to her, I didn't shut it off, and it stayed with me. Um, so I think it's important to encourage that in children. But it's difficult to fit in this world if you see more than others.
You
I know that, and lots of other people do. It's you
definitely is.
always, like I said, take 10 people off the street, and many of that, maybe one has got a little bit more of the spectrum. So the other 9 people are going to call that one person mad.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. And yeah, that's the way it is with psychics and psychic researchers like myself and others.
But I think now what we can you just relay there, we're talking about the science here and how
Mm,
technology's slightly catching up and
yeah,
science is catching up for all these maybe um, scientists in any field in regards to like maybe for example you've got the UFO field and you've got maybe Earth
yeah,
mysteries field where you maybe
yeah,
get archaeologists would just disregard things that they couldn't understand and then
yes.
scientists of the day looking at the UFO field would do the exact same. But we're now seeing a general convergence between um, things like your in regards to like quantum physics,
Mm,
consciousness, spirituality kind of coming together in some kind of sense where you can link a lot into each other.
absolutely. Yeah, and I think is a broad range of phenomena that's going on. I mean, some of it's linked. I think certainly the monster stuff and the Earthlight stuff are very much linked, or the plasma stuff with the monster stuff. But there's also a time thing going on as well, where there are, if you like, extraterrestrials or interterrestrials, more likely coming from the future or the past.
Yeah.
Um, that sort of thing is going on as well, because studying, all the great ufologists, they all say that one of the common things the UFO aliens want to know is what time frame is this, or where are we? What so as if they've come from a different universe or parallel world or a different time.
Mhm.
So you've got a lot going on. in my view. There's also the plasma morphing into something that we want to see as well, which is quite common in a lot of UFO sightings, where it starts with a ball of light and ends either in a Virgin Mary or a Bigfoot or an alien. And I think, we've seen UFOs in the UFO record that the early sightings showed that the people who'd been on board the craft, he said, would see levers and bars and buttons. And, and as we've progressed in technology, people have been abducted by ships that have gone up technology as well,
Yeah.
which that shouldn't be. If in the past they would have gone on if it was from another world, it would have high tech right back then.
That's the thing as well. I do think about when if you've got like some super advanced machine
Yeah,
that's that advanced, and you're maybe seeing it in the 70s, and
yeah,
you're seeing it maybe a decade later. That
yeah,
that thing shouldn't really change that much in relevance
exactly.
to like the technology.
Yes,
And I agree with you there. I mean, it's a funny one, that, and it's like it's almost like I don't know. It's but now we're in a kind of situation now where it's almost like it's you're creating, or it's creating something for you. You're creating it
yeah.
in one
You
sense.
are part creating it. Yes, I agree. And unless you are lucky enough to encounter somebody from a different parallel world, which which there are laws as well, which means they can't really interfere too much in our little world, because as far as I know, with lots of paranormal stuff, these creatures don't last long here. Even John Keel noted that in his thousands of cases, that these monsters or aliens appear, but they only have a short time, and they either disappear or they leave. So it's only brief incursions into our reality. Um, and
Well,
we found out with most sightings. I think one good thing about researching the Blienstein, we've been given hundreds of reports of strange phenomena along the line.
yeah.
So we've got quite an archive of mysterious paranormal things. For my favourite place, of course, is the Isle of Wight, which for me is the most paranormal island in the UK. Apart from, of course, the Lothians, which are in your area, which has just as much paranormal stuff as anywhere else. But certainly in England, the Isle of Wight is an epicenter of paranormal phenomena.
One of the
Um,
questions I was going to ask you, in regards to phenomena, and I know obviously along the line there's like multiple sacred sites that you've found and researched
mm,
on multiple different lines. And so in regards to, I know we are talking about in regards to the plasma. Um,
mm.
I mean, why is that kind of part where you see a more manifestation of um, creatures at sacred sites or UFO phenomena at a sacred site? Why would it be mainly at a sacred site rather than just a lot? Is it right along the line, or would it be more inclined to
Mm.
be like one of these points?
Yes, I think the points do give off higher electromagnetism, and
Mm,
so if you are psychic, then being in that field allows you to participate in what's going on, or tune into what's going on, or even connect to your higher self and get inspiration at those places,
mm,
because the energy is much higher. We call the node points, where you get two of the male or one of the male and female currents crossing, certainly near the alignment.
mm,
We call these node points, and they are mysterious, but the ancients knew about them because most of them are on prehistoric sites, or they've been marked by prehistoric peoples. So it's, I think, throughout time, I think we don't know how to use the energy, and I think the ancient prehistoric peoples, the so-called Neolithic people, I think they knew how to use this energy and probably used it um, for a number of reasons, to connect with intelligences beyond their intelligences. So perhaps they would call it communicating with the gods, but it's just communicating with higher consciousness, probably, or plasma consciousness, because plasma can come through at these node points where the geology is very strong. The friction of the geology is very strong, creating more energy. It's all about energy, really. It's like Roslin Chapel is set in a place of massive geological energy coming from water, the fault lines, and the very nature of the Roslin Glen itself sort of focuses towards the chapel, so it allows it to be a thin veil place, if you like.
Yeah.
Maybe I know it sounds crazy, but a lot of people are coming to this conclusion that in the future we will learn to not travel to distant planets, but move into other parallel worlds that do exist alongside ours. These worlds may be very similar to ours. They may not be as nice as well, or they may be better than ours. But I think the ancients knew how to move through time and space at these places. And that explains why so many of the ancient tribes, where they disappeared to, and why they disappeared. The mines, for instance, there's millions of mines that suddenly disappeared. But they were also masters of earth energy and geomancers, and knew these places of power where you could probably move through, like like some of these TV programs we watch today, where people like the Fringe, for instance.
Yeah.
There's a lot of truth in the Fringe series about parallel worlds. Maybe not a war between the two, as they depict, but certainly discovering ways of moving
Yeah.
across.
I
And
mean,
it's not just parallel worlds either. It could be a distant worlds as well. So movement won't be through rockets in space, but through yeah.
do you believe as well where you get on these convergence points or the nodes and even on the ley lines where you might have manifestations or appearances of maybe something coming through for somewhere else, albeit maybe for a short space of time, sometimes even longer. Does that
Yes.
work in the other footing where I know you alluded to it there, where people disappear and go missing at these
Yes.
points as well? Maybe some of them slip through for some reason and can't get back.
I know of a case, several cases actually, where that has happened. There's one well-written case. I think Andrew Collins refers to it in his book. I've got Aliens, I think. But he refers to the story about this man who spent the night in West Kent Longbarrow. And in the middle of the night, he wanted to get up to relieve himself, and found he was in a different landscape. The fields were completely different. I don't think there was any crops in the field, but it spooked him because it looked like a different world. But instead of panicking, he just thought, "Well, I'm going mad. I'm going mad." So he went back in to the barrow, fell asleep, and when he woke up, he was back in this reality. But I think he thought that if he'd have started to wander off into this other world, he might not have got back, and he'd be one of many hundreds of probably thousands of people that go missing throughout this country and other countries that there's no explanation for at all.
It's
Um,
interesting when you look back any like through, for example, even the Reverend Robert Kirk, one of the first
yes,
paranormal investigators of the day.
yes,
When you look
we
at
write
his
about him.
Yeah, when you look at some of his reports on that, and it wasn't just all fairies and things like that, but quite a lot of the actual things he looked at was disappearances and reappearances and second sight. But some of it was like more about like people would say it was like more like a present day abduction scenario, but it was like certain places where people would disappear and come back.
Yeah.
There's stories of that
Yeah.
even back then.
Well, Aberfeldy is situated right next to one of the greatest fault lines in Britain.
Mhm.
Right by it, literally, you can see the Great Highland Fault
Great Highland Fault, yeah, yeah.
from Aberfeldy, and Doon Hill. Doon Hill's in our book, The Holy Axis.
Yeah, it's
It's
right
actually
through that.
yeah.
It kind of kicks in about there and goes right up
Mm,
through that point with Aberfeldy, and you go right along
yeah,
that. There's stone circles all the way dotted up that as well, aren't there?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And people, have gone missing around these faults. There's another case of a couple at Loch End, the other end of Loch Ness, who disappeared. They were caught in a storm and never seen again. But apparently, 100 years later, a couple appeared in the future, with the same description, and they jumped 100 years in this electric storm on the fault line, which is Loch Ness.
Yeah.
Extremely powerful fault line. Of course, most paranormal investigators have found Loch Ness has not just got a monster; it has all kinds of phenomena. It's a massive, what we call a hotspot of UFO activity.
Yeah, there's a
Um, other beasts and monsters and black cats and yeah, you name it. Loch Ness, the Valley of Loch Ness has it all.
there's also on just with the convergence where it comes up with the fault line, and after
Mm.
the fault line, on the is it the south side of the loch, there's a
Yes,
large geomagnetic anomaly there as well.
yes,
Um,
yeah,
for there,
yeah,
which
yeah,
is quite interesting. But you've also got like the Cairngorms, which is
yeah,
a vast number of things up there, where you've got all the quartz,
mm.
the granite and the
Yes.
quartz.
Scotland as a whole has so many major fault lines running through it, and the mountains, the crystal, the water, all those. It's all elements to create plasma and psychic phenomena. I mean, Loch Lomond. We write a lot about Loch Lomond and its mysteries.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's more to get my teeth into in Scotland than there is in England, because of the energy up there.
Mhm. I mean,
Yeah.
going back to like even the Cairngorms, for example, the amount of multiple different things up there. It's an area where I want to look into a bit more as well up there, the Cairngorms, because
Mm.
there's so much going on where you've got like the big grey man Ben McDoo, the stories for there. They
Yes.
go back, they actually only go back roughly about 100 years, right? But
Mm.
there's other stories, jumping a bit off topic here, but there's other stories that that went back a few hundred years before that, which were
Mm.
maybe 60 or 80 miles away. And
Yeah.
Affleck Gray didn't link the two together because he thought they were too far away.
Mm.
But if you look at like some of the reports, like the kind of present day reports, like these things like travel and whatever else, but you've got that up
Mm.
there, then you've got obviously the Theory Society. They had like a pilgrimage hill up there as well, which is next to Ben McDoo.
Ah.
It's a whole kind of plethora of stuff up there. You know what I mean? It's right next to Ben McDoo. It's like it's walking distance for Ben McDoo, where they've got like a pilgrimage hill where
Mm.
they still go to and stuff like that, or people within the Theory Society go to. But it's interesting. But so I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
going back to sorry, on you go.
No, I was going to say I first read that story back in the when I was in my late teens in a book called Enchanted Britain,
Mhm.
talking about the ghost or the beast of Ben McDoo. So it was an inspiring tale. That was quite a scary one.
It's
But,
interesting because it was prominent. There's like quite prominent mountaineers that relayed the story. A few of them. And one of them actually didn't relay the story until another. I think it was like 20 years after it or something like that. And then, but he said he would never go in the mountain himself again after
mm,
that. And I
yeah,
think he's seen. I think he actually, because at the thing he said he'd never seen it, but other people say they actually seen it. And there's been
mm,
loads of other reports, and there's other things as well that I found interesting about it. Where there was people had reports in the Larry Grue, which is just down the hill for the Ben McDoo. There's a mountain across from Ben McDoo, which is called the Devil's Point.
yeah,
It used to be called the Devil's Penis, but they changed the name because the Queen was visiting and stuff like that, so
yes,
they changed it. But you've got so many things up there, and there's like stories, not just the people seeing the Ben McDoo thing and that. You've got stories of people being up on the hill, and it's almost like they go into a trance and talk to somebody else. There's stories of that and things like that as well, but just like the energies up there. But it's
mm,
there's a whole plethora of things up there. People go missing up there as well, and that's the thing is like people go missing up there, found again. Some people just go missing, but
yes,
most people are found again. But it's because their compass goes off or
mm,
the geology and things like that, and they go
yes.
missing and things like that every year.
Yeah, or like the young couple in Roslyn Glen, who went out for a walk, and they were sat there opposite where the cave is, and suddenly they heard people in the distance shouting their names, and they got up and asked what was wrong, and they said they'd been missing for 24 hours. They said, well, we haven't had any, we just come here after lunch, sat down, had a talk, and we heard you coming, so we haven't had any sense of that amount of time passing. They instantly shot forward in time
That's
without them realizing it. And
mad.
these time jumps, time slips, are so common throughout the British Isles and Scotland as well. So perhaps people have. I've had a time slip experience myself when I was 14. And I was up in Cumbria, and was actually on an outward bound school sort of a few days camping trip up in near Coniston, and we decided that on this particular day we'd all go rock climbing. But I says after breakfast, I'm just going for a short walk up the hill. I'll be back in a minute. So I went up the hill, and then I saw this tree with a great view. So I got up in its branches, saw this amazing view, and I thought, wow, this is incredible. And I got this real sensation of ecstasy throughout my body, and seeing all these colours. I thought, wow, what's going on? And I just thought, I couldn't move. I was sort of frozen there. And then before I knew it, I could sense the light had gone down, and there were people calling my name, and a whole day had passed. But for me, just 5 minutes or a few minutes of this feeling. And
Hmm.
other people have said that too. There's a feeling, quite a euphoric feeling that comes with these time sort of jumps. And that's the first time I've had that experience, but I've had it in other circumstances, but in churches as well. I've gone missing. People look for me, and then suddenly I've appeared again. And of course, haven't had any sense of loss of time, but I've jumped. Yes, it's a strange thing.
Totally interesting though. I mean, the whole kind of thing where that the time slips and the fact where people actually either potentially transporting somebody else, even
Mm,
regardless of time. But there's
mm,
another one as well, which I just wanted to mention there when we're on the subject of the Ben McDo thing and the Cairngorms.
yes,
There was
yeah.
one other person in the Cairngorms who got found. I think it must have been the 19, I'm sure it was the 40s, might have been more than the 40s or 50s, where there was
Mm,
a guy we found with a full suit on and a bowler hat and stuff like that, a briefcase, dead. Um, like well, right up in the middle of the Cairngorms where he shouldn't have been with that type of tire on. And to get where he
mm,
was, you were talking it would have probably been like about a 6, 7 hour hike or something like that to get there. And I think the
mm,
explanation for it was somebody potentially jokingly told him that the train to somewhere else was like up a certain route and he went that way. That was the
mm,
explanation for it. But nobody actually told the guy
mm,
that. I think that was just like
mm.
some local probably told him that and that he
Yes,
got off the train at the wrong stop and they told him to walk up the Rothy Murkish way and he ended up way up the back of the Cairngorms, which I find like just totally implausible.
yes.
But I'm sure it was I'll need to read back in it. I'm sure it was like the 40s or 50s, but just
Mm,
it was totally out of place.
yeah.
And there's somebody else up that neck of the woods. There was one that
Mm,
they never actually found out who he was, but the Ben Alder man was just a man who was found up in the where was it? Up in Ben Alder, basically. I can't remember the date it was, but he was never. They never knew who he was. Never got to find out who the guy was. But
mm,
totally interesting. Um,
wow.
going back to the ley lines. What
Mm.
took you on your research or your quest going into looking at the Holy Axis?
Um, that again, that was well, we were on Lindisfarne for actually a holiday. We'd finished the Spine of Albion. We thought we'd just have a few days, and I'd never been on Holy Island, Lindisfarne.
It's a beautiful
We
place.
sort of stayed there, so we rented a cottage on there. And the first night we were there, I had a dream that there was this line of rocks or something. I felt myself walking along this row like a line of rocks, and I couldn't expect. I mentioned it to my partner, and she said, "Yeah, Caroline." She said, "Yeah, she had the same dream." So we thought that was strange, and but we didn't think much of it because strange things often happen. We all have strange dreams. But that day, we was walking along Lindisfarne. We saw a map, and we saw this line of basalt that runs along the bottom of the island, where the priory and the churches and the sacred cuspids are. Were all part of this fault line, if you like. So I thought about it. I thought, I wonder if that has something to do with our dream. But anyway, we ignored it. We carried on. The next night, we woke up in the morning. We'd had another dream. This time, we were walking these line of rocks with dowsing rods, and Carol had the same dream. So we thought, well, maybe the spirit of the island, the genius loci, if you like, is telling us something about this fault line. Maybe we need to douse it and see what is going on. So Caroline was already forewarned before this trip by a psychic that something would be calling us at Lindisfarne. It had something to do with the energy of Bride or Bridget or the goddess sort of Britain, if you like, in Celtic times. So, and we found a couple of places dedicated to Bride on the island, which is interesting. But uh, we doused it, this line of rocks, and we came across sort of a female energy that seemed to be in distress because she was a dragon line, which means we could douse components within her flow, like wires in a 13 amp wire in your house. There's a positive and negative and other lines and wires within that, and we kind of douse when you douse those components, you're dealing with some energy dragon sort of line, serpent current. So we followed it, and it went across to Bamborough Castle, and Bamborough has got this legend of a dragon being slayed, and to do with the cave underneath. So this started us on a quest to see if Bamborough Castle was also on this line, and of course it was. And then while we were dowsing around the castle, we found another line coming in, similar sort of feel to it, but of a male type. So we found a node point right on a point in the castle where there was probably an underground cave, which is where this dragon's supposed to have been kept. That started us thinking, because this psychic also said to us, while you go, you must connect with Rosslyn Chapel. So when I got home, after having that experience, I just put a line from Bamborough Castle to Roslyn, and it carried on through on Google Earth, that is, and it carried on through the Isles of Loch Lomond, passing close to Kilmartin up to Iona.
Mm-hmm.
And in the opposite direction, it was going towards the Farne Isles. So it was like a line of islands, because it also connected with several other little islands within Scotland and Northumbria.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all associated with Celtic priests. And, sort of the Grail mysteries were associated with the places as well. The Bamborough Castle has the sort of associated with Lancelot, and the Lothians with King Lot. And Cairnpapel and lots of other places were associated with Arthur, although they were talking about the Scottish Arthur, son of Aidan. We realised there was a whole story come up here, so we decided to go back the next year and spend a week there and follow this line from Lindisfarne, and it took us to a node point at Roslyn Chapel, passing all these incredible cup and ring mark plateaus like Doddington and others. And then on to Cairnpapel was another node, Torfichan, the preceptory of the Knights Hospitaller.
Yeah.
And then the two sacred Isles of Loch Lomond, where there was an Isle of the Monks and the Isle of the Nuns, which is interesting. And the whole line just had so much of interest. And and so connected
Mm-hmm.
with sites associated with the great poet Scott. So yeah, that's how the book started, The Holy Axis. And 10 years later, after, even in the middle of COVID as well,
Yeah.
we managed to finish it. So I've got a picture here.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll share all the books in the show notes as well. And
Yeah,
but in
yeah,
regards,
that's
so sorry, you go.
yeah, that's been an incredible journey because the very last node we didn't know about until the very last minute because we thought it all ended at Iona,
Mm-hmm.
but both of us started to sense there was something other than Iona. Caroline came up to me one day and says, I've been having these dreams that there's another node we've missed out.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I had the same feeling, but I didn't want to tell her because, we were already exhausted through doing all this stuff for so long. We've had to do it all again. So, but anyway, we realized that there must be something. So we looked at it all in detail again to see if we'd made any mistakes. And then eventually we come to realize it was beyond Iona, the node point. And so when we looked at the map and dowsed the map, we realized it was Tyree that was at the end of the line, the last node. And Tyree was a real eye opener. It's such a sacred island because it's not like any other islands, as you might know if you've been to Tyree. There's crops on the island. There's fields, fertile fields. There's it's a very fertile island. It's known as the Isle of Healing. There's lots of holy wells, standing stones, stone circles on the island. It has more going for it than Iona. If it wasn't for the Christians' sites on Iona,
Yeah.
Tyree feels far more sacred. So it seemed that Tyree seemed to be the perfect sort of Isle of the Grail for us, starting with Bambra and the male warrior, ending at the Grail Island.
How,
So that's a little bit anyway.
but when you're plotting out the line, like the ley line, how
Mm.
far do you divert off it? If you is it a straight line and you divert off? Is it like, to go right through everything, or what kind
Well,
of?
I'll tell you how we worked out the line for this holy axis, because the first node was at Bamborough Castle, and that there wasn't a node on Lindisfarne. So
Yeah.
at first I was taking the line from Lindisfarne, so I'll take it from the node point at Bamborough Castle. And then we also found that there's a node point right in the centre of Roslin Chapel, underneath the something stone, what they call it, it's like the pivot stone, of the chapel. It's like a stone with a pointer down.
Yeah, no,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
I forgot what they call it now, but
Is this the one it's
yeah,
next to the front altar where it comes down? Is
no,
that
it's in the centre of the aisle, in the middle of the chapel, almost opposite the two doors.
right?
As
Okay.
you, yeah, I think some of the authors here have pointed that out in my library that it might be the site where there is a hidden chamber below. I don't know,
Mhm.
or it conforms to the Holy of Holies in King Solomon's temple if you put a plan of it over. But
Yeah.
yeah, this pendant stone. It marks the spot, and we thought, well, wouldn't it have been better if the node point was either, right in the altar area or in front of the pillars? But it wasn't even marked by anything, but we kept dowsing, going back and checking to see if we were wrong. And then one day while we were there, the guide of the chapel was getting these people to queue up and stand on this very spot that we'd picked. And I was curious. I asked the guide afterwards, "Why are you asking people to stand on that spot?" She said, "Because most psychic people who come here feel that that's a real power point, that there's more energy there than anywhere
That's
else
interesting.
in
Yeah.
the chapel." And I thought that's really interesting because that's where we found a node point, of earth energies.
Mhm.
And she said, "Oh yes, yes. Many people find earth energies here, and they find it over there and over there." So But for us, it meant something really powerful. So,
Mm.
and that was a work. So we fixed the axis between that really powerful node and Banbury Castle, and that took it to the exactly through Cairn Papel, exactly the actual henge, exactly through the Torfik and Preceptory, not 100 yards away, 100 feet, right through the Preceptory,
Ah, right through it.
um, and right through the two Holy Islands, and straight through to the Oran's Chapel on Iona, where the King's graveyard, um, where the graveyard of the Kings. Um, so that's how we fix the line. Now you're going to say, "What does that have any power?" But um, I think there is a certain power with these lines because um, everything is in threes. I always find all power into three. There can't be the male and female currents without the middle axis for it to follow. It's the same with all electrical currents. There has to be a sort of third element, a line, if you like, that has a composite of the two energies,
Mhm.
the third force, if you like. And many people who are very gifted at dowsing can dowse these axis lines as well. But we used it because they are dead straight delays. It's easy to use Google Earth to uncover them, but sometimes Google Earth is not as accurate as it can be. So sometimes you have to look at maps as well, and other forms of uh, sighting tools as well,
Yeah.
because Ordnance Survey take liberties with sites. A lot of them are not where they should be on the map. So we know that. I mean, Robin Heath will say that as well because he's found inaccuracies with Ordnance Survey. So yeah, good way. For us, that's how we plotted the line. But for us, it was the pathway of the currents that seemed to have the more of interest for us because they really carry the energy, the male and female currents.
Mhm.
Um, and where they crossed to me were key places. And of course, they do cross exactly on the axis in many places. And they proved to be fascinating sites with layers of history that would take me hours to talk about.
I'd be
Yeah.
interested to see where the where the line lies, how far from my house. So I'm actually from
Where are
here.
you?
I can see Cairn Papel from
Oh, right.
from my front door,
In
and
the Bathgate
um,
Hills.
yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
literally about 3.5 miles from Durfickin, and so I can see Cairn Papel, and then just over to the side, if I can see with the way I'll need to actually check in Google Maps, but the
Yes.
preceptory is just like that way as well. So it'll run in that kind of direction. I mean, I'm
Yes.
interested if it comes through my house, but I don't think it will.
Yeah. Yes. Well, there are quite a few lines running through that area, and of course, it is a UFO hotspot as well,
Totally, yeah, yeah.
or plasma hotspot, if you want to call it that.
Mm.
Graham Gardner's also does lines through there, the Harry Bell line, amongst others. Yeah, there's it's a complex. I think Ken Papel is a capsule of time. Going right back to the earliest sort of religious forms of sacred site, right to the present, to Saxon times as well. So
Mhm.
it's a unique place. I think Ken Papel deserves more attention than it does.
Yeah.
It's a shame about the communications tower there, but
Yeah,
because it is on a high point, and everybody wants communications, and nothing you can do.
yeah, that's one thing that I do not like about up there, but the fact that the
Mm.
tower. I've got a thing of electrosensitivity, which isn't great for in this day and age with Wi-Fi and everything else. And up there, it's fine, but I'd rather a tower not being there
Yeah.
for that thing. But it's an interesting place, and the amount of like the Lothians, and I mean when you look at Kieran Papel, when you look at the amount of different UFO reports and
Mm.
other
Yeah.
different types of reports as well, just in that vicinity over a number of
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
I mean, there's loads. I mean, that's it. I mean, and,
Mm.
and they're all. I mean, I kind of use that as a convergence point just for a reference
Mm.
and to see where this phenomena is like you've
Yes.
got that much phenomena coming through, and
Mm.
then you've got people when they talk about UFOs in Scotland, they always talk about Bonnybridge and stuff, but Bonnie Bridge is when
mm,
all that flap happened in the 90s.
mm,
It wasn't just confined to Bonnie Bridge. It did spread over to like the Lothians
yeah,
and Armadale and Bathgate,
yes,
Livingston, and further afield than that.
triangle sites,
Yeah, yeah, totally.
all
And
the way up to Edinburgh, isn't it?
yeah, totally. So I mean, but I think people kind of think the main flap was like just Bonnie Bridge, but it did kind of stretch further than that. But even at that, Bonnie Bridge is only about it's roughly about as a crow flies about 13, 14 miles away from there as well. But there's so much. There's still stuff coming through. We still get like reports from that coming through, and
Yeah.
just various things. I mean, there was one recently where there was like a somebody had videoed like an orb. I'm just going off tangent here, but I'll just tell you this. But I mean, so somebody had videoed like an orb.
Mm,
Um, Probably it looked roughly about a mile away, and it was
mm,
a bright, intense light. It was above the tree line.
yeah.
You could see a plane in the background. So you knew we stay in a flight path, so we know what planes are like. But somebody videoed that, just a quick video, and it sat stationary for a wee bit, then kind of slightly moved. But when you seen
Mm,
it during the day, you could actually see that it was really, really low, and it was just above a certain tree line, and the planes fly at a different
yeah.
height, a different kind of way,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Unbeknown to the person who videoed it, in the same vicinity, there was
Mm,
that was like there's a prominent kind of UFO encounter up there, but the police were involved and stuff up the back of Blackridge, between Blackridge and Armadale. It's a
mm,
kind of black triangular prism shaped object. It was the exact same location, the
mm,
exact same location. I went and looked at it. So I could look in where the video was taken, look in Google Earth, and I triangulated it back to the same point.
yeah.
And then, interesting enough as well, there was another researcher had sent me a message on somebody else had seen something that was like a cryptid type thing, and it was in the same vicinity as well, unbeknown to
Mm,
they. I know where these places are, so I've been there, and I've been
yes.
the guy who had the actual encounter back in the day.
Mm,
He took me to the exact spot.
yeah.
Um, so it's
Yeah.
an interesting place. I mean, I do think there's
It's a window area, isn't it? As we
definitely.
call a window area. I mean, I've seen these balls of plasma throughout my life. And I've been lucky to have an encounter with one in front of 9 other people. We all witnessed it, and we were standing outside a pub late at night. We were only 16, and the teachers were inside getting drunk, or having a few pints, and we were confined to the balcony of the pub where we were in soft drinks, but nobody else was around, just us, because it was sort of early May, or was it late April? I can't remember. But we saw what looked like a moving star, or somebody said a comet, but it stopped dead. And I remember saying, I've never seen a comet stop dead before. And then, as we all looked at it, and this is the key thing, once you put attention to these lights, you draw them to you. And as soon as we all started to focus on it and look at it and wonder what it was, it sensed us and came swooping down to us, and it hovered above us, and it looked like, to me now, because of my psychic ability, I could see for what it was. It was a ball of fire, but not fire like plasma. I know in laboratories now I've seen balls of plasma, and that's exactly what they look like. They're like miniature suns, a sort of swirling energy inside of them.
Mm.
And then it's an intense light as well, and it hovered over us for about 5 or 10 seconds, and then shot off, like engaging warp and starship. It just incredible speed, and it shot off in the direction of Monmouth, along a well-known ley line. Funny enough, as I later found out. But having that experience when I was only 14, also with that time slip experience, sort of completely shaped my life. There's something out there, I knew that exists, and that we're denying it in some ways. And there's huge cover-ups about these mysterious energies. And that gave me the inspiration to look into all this stuff. And yeah, and we'd seen them around where we live here in Dorset a lot, the Jurassic coast signs full of balls of light. And it's not mainly the geology here, because a lot of it's chalk, but it's the underground water, especially through what we call the upper greensand, which is like a sandstone. And
Yeah.
the friction and pressure of the water underneath creates incredible pressure and buildups of energy. And when it's released, it creates an ionized gas, and ionized gas is plasma.
Hmm.
But I found that the local geoplasma doesn't have a long life. It goes off into the air, it'll move about, do incredible things, and then either fizzle out or go back into the ground again,
Hmm.
which, thousands of sites refer to that kind of sighting, where it just appears and then disappears.
Yeah.
But some forms of plasma that are out of the atmosphere, which is what the one we saw at Simmons Yat in the Forest of Dean, that came out of the atmosphere, and that could live longer and connect with us.
It's conscious.
Um,
Yeah.
it had more. It had consciousness, and it was a different form of. It's a different form of life. I mean, we have to look at plasma as a form of life, a higher form of life than humans,
Hmm.
and that they do have intelligence, and that in the past the ancients knew how to attract plasma and hold it in devices like the Ark of the Covenant, which is a condenser that can hold the energy. And it even says in the legends that the Ark was to contain the force of God so that people could speak to it wherever they went.
Hmm.
And uh, it makes a lot of sense to me that the ancients knew about plasma, these balls of light. We're all very confused about these balls of light. We're afraid of them. They prey on our fears and manifest as some monsters or creatures. When if we sort of project love at these things, like people have done in Avebury, they appear as angels and other things, which is, or again, been written by Andrew Collins in some of his books. So we they respond to us in a way, and I think the ancients understood these creatures. This force was able to use it, maybe manipulate it, maybe use it as a source of power, um, but certainly as a source of guidance as well.
Hmm.
Because I think most of the early cultures talk about their gods coming out of caves in the mountains. Plasma is born in many mountains, like Ben McDo. It's a mountain that probably naturally forms plasma because of its crystalline
Yeah.
makeup.
Piezoelectric
And
effect.
anybody who's a fearful person living up there, because the human condition, in our psyche, there's monsters because we watch the television, we read books.
Yeah.
Um, that can be drawn out of us too. So the whole monster thing Ben meant do could well be just plasma trying to communicate in a way that whatever this guy was putting out in his psyche. So it's like the old adage, be careful what you think, you'll manifest.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I find that interesting. Like even that comment there in regards to about manifestation of things like tulpas and egregores and things like that. And I
Mm.
always think of the UFO phenomena and think, where did the first thought come from? Or who's implanting it in our mind to actually think of these things? So that if it
Yeah.
is that way in regards to
Mm.
manifestation through like creating a tulpa by thinking about it,
Yeah.
where does the initial thought come from? Is there
Mm.
something putting that thought in people's minds to actually
Mm.
make a communal kind of thought
Yeah.
to make it appear?
Yeah. Well, a lot of the Virgin Mary sightings start off as a ball of light. I think that place in Spain where there was a mass Virgin Mary sighting, the first thing they saw was a ball of light coming down and then morphing into the Virgin Mary as it approached them. It's the same with the Virgin Mary sightings in Cairo, in the Coptic Quarter, that were filmed and photographed on many occasions. In fact, it was probably one of the best cases of plasma manifestation I've ever heard of. And yeah, I've seen lots of photographs of light, of a very bright light starting to morph into a figure because all the people below were sort of highly Catholic religious people. It was in the Coptic quarter,
Mm-hmm.
and it happened to manifest as the Virgin Mary for them. And but you could see it was really a light being that was just been morphing. It wasn't an alien, as many people thought, or it was, well, for them, the real Virgin Mary. But no, that's what they all wanted to see. They all want to have that kind of experience.
There was an interesting comment in regards to, I can't remember who made the comment, but it was in regards to the recent disclosure process in America about UFOs, UAP, and things like that. If you follow that kind of side of it, and there's like parts of the US government don't want to deal with it because they think it's demons or whatever, right? That's the thing that's getting bandied about because they're
Mm,
religious fundamentalists, or maybe something they know. And there's others who don't want it out because it's just technology and it's all down to money and stuff. And but somebody had made a comment, I can't remember who it was, about why it's not getting released, or the information they're getting released is because if you release it to the public, then it exists, as in like we the general, there's more people to create it. You know what I
yes.
mean? In regards to like tulpas and things like that, you know what I mean, which I found quite interesting.
Yes.
Don't believe it's that, but that's it's an interesting it's an interesting way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
That you could go down a few rabbit holes with that one.
Yeah,
Um,
well, definitely. There's so many rabbit holes. I think at the moment I'm more fascinated with OOPArts, the out of place objects that are found all over the world in deep mines, like the Dorchester vase, which is a perfect sort of metallic vase that was blasted out of a geological layer millions of years old.
yeah,
And it was absolutely perfect. And then it was examined by experts, and then as all these things, they disappear. They suddenly disappear, as if some organisation somewhere mops them up to keep this.
Smithsonian or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, that's been bandied around a lot. Yeah, that
Yeah.
their main purpose is to put a lid on anything other than that we are the only race that's evolved on this planet. Um, yeah, but somebody recently has found it in an Indian museum, an exact looked like a replica of the Dorchester vase, but of course it isn't. But it's a candle holder. So the
Hmm.
weirdest thing is, what would be a candle holder doing in a layer of millions of years BC? And of course, when it came out the layer, the shape of the vase was actually in the rock, so
Yeah.
it wasn't fake. And there's other things that have been found as well recently that I know it's almost impossible, but
Yeah.
it is. I believe, because I'm lucky enough to live very close to Portland, and the Isle of Portland has probably one of the greatest records of human history in its geological layers,
Mhm.
because it's for millions of years it's been gentle seas that leaving sediment. Whereas in other areas of the country, there's turbulence
Yeah.
and volcanic rocks. Like in Scotland, it's hard to see the geological layer there because you've had a lot of movement in the land and flooding. But here in Dorset, it's just sort of gentle seas. And so you see all these layers that going up the cliff. And recently, a dinosaur's been found, just over halfway up.
Mhm.
So further down, there's still all these layers.
Yeah.
And you think, and the human history is just a couple of feet at the top.
Mm.
And yet there's 600 feet of these cliffs. The dinosaurs are halfway down. Then you've got all these other layers. And in those layers are little sort of bands like black fragments, which people say they may well be record of global warming
Yeah.
in the past, where civilizations like us have come and gone to the extreme, and sort of perished in some cataclysm or something of their own making.
Yeah.
And all that is now is just a black line. But there are a lot of black lines. Now people are starting to realize that there were other civilizations before ours.
Mhm.
And that because the earth has reaped itself and covered everything up and squashed it into a little layer. there's no way we'll ever know that, unless we find these oo parts. So I'm very interested in these oo parts, because people who are psychic, like myself and others, know and sense these other sort of places like Atlantis, Lemuria, and all these places. We know that they exist. They existed.
Yeah.
It's in our bones, if you like. We can't be told that it never existed, because we kind of know in our soul, in our being, that they did exist.
Mm.
But finding evidence is slim. But there are now people looking at these layers and finding the chemical analysis that there was global warming, and perhaps, in some of these layers they will find evidence of human civilizations.
Mm. It's,
And
it's an
yeah,
interesting area. Sorry, when you go.
no, it's fine. I was saying we might end up just another layer. In a million years' time, we may just be another layer on the Isle of Portland.
Probably if we don't get our act together.
Well,
Anytime
I think
soon.
it's difficult because we're expanding. People don't want to talk about population expansion, and that's what's going to cause the end of the world, not global warming. And we're actually killing the Earth with the sheer number of people that have been born on the Earth.
I mean,
Um,
the thing with
yeah.
that aspect as well, like killing the earth, I always kind of say it's we're not really we're kind of wasting it for ourselves in any regard. We'll just make it unhospitable for us. It'll probably go on and live again, the earth, in regards, but
I
um,
will. The Earth. I've been a person who's gone around healing the Earth for a long time, and working with groups who want to heal the Earth. For me, I feel the Earth is telling me, we don't need the healing. You do.
yeah.
No, you as individuals need the healing. The Earth will help you.
Mhm.
And that is the biggest message that we put out in our books, that we fight walking the pathways and connecting with these energies helps awaken us up now, because now is the time, because the population is expanding to such a degree now that we have to do the awakening now. Otherwise we'll just perish, like we'll be another layer in Portland.
It-
So
it-
but a lot of people don't realize how quickly the population of the world is expanding. I remember Dan Brown did something, and it was filmed in one of the series, about this fictional guy who's talking about expansion saturations. It's all true. That is happening, but of course, that's the last thing governments want to focus on, or world councils. It's the elephant in the room, the sort of overpopulation.
Mhm. Overpopulation is one thing, but it's the distribution of wealth, and then even what the wealth's spent on in regards to, I mean, rather than spending
That will all come tumbling down.
trillions or like trillions on military stuff and technologies that way, I mean, they could be putting that money a lot better use in helping the populations of um, some of their own countries and other countries, rather than just the war machine. But that's
Yeah,
the interesting thing now. What I do find is like the whole disclosure process is potentially happening in America, if no other places, as the
yeah,
technologies and what comes out for that, and then it opens up a lot of other cans of worms if it eventually
mm,
does come out. You know what I mean, in regards to who we are, where we've came from,
mm,
past civilizations, all the type of questions are going to be opened
yes,
up as well. It's not just a case of are we alone in the universe?
mm,
I mean that question's been answered probably. I mean, it's like
yeah.
it's just a case of
Mm.
trying to get the rest of the population to actually open their eyes.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things I've learned is we are not alone. I mean, being a person like I am, I've felt alone quite a lot throughout my life. But then now I realise I'm not alone. There's a lot of people who are awakening, and then realizing that we're all connected on a spiritual and an energetic level.
Mhm.
With um, in science is now proving that. In quantum science,
Mhm.
as particle science, we're all connected. And they're proving that now. So we are the ones that are closing ourselves off to others.
Mhm.
So we've got to learn to open up, to get that sort of connective, collective thing going on again. And that's what is happening. I mean, there's so many young people now that are turning on to us. We're selling more books to younger people now than we've done for the past 20 years. It's always been people of over 50s that seem to be more interested in being more spiritual or the sacred sites. But the young people are turning onto it much quicker and at a faster pace now. So it's quite encouraging what we're seeing.
Yeah, definitely. That's good. I mean, and that's what I was saying as well. Even with I refer to the disclosure process to that because it's that
Mm,
could be like another people who maybe don't believe or aren't interested in any of
mm,
these kind of type of subjects. It might just be the opening door for them to look at everything else. And
yeah,
that's what I find quite intriguing and what it's going to do. It's no for me. It's not just about for that aspect anyway. Not just about the existence of something. It's about the other questions and answers that come for it after that, and the eyes opening for other people. You know what I mean? So,
yes. And I think people will discover that the free energy is available,
mhm,
and it has been available for a long time. There is in which people can actually have lives without that being a slave to a system, and actually be more spiritual and learn about everything more. And because most people don't have the time to look at this stuff, from as soon as they leave school, they're bound up in education, which leads them along certain paths and probably not the true path.
mhm.
And then they either get married, have children. That's the focus because money keeps them struggling. And by the time you've got through all that, there's only if you survive all that, then you might start to have time to look at what's really going on.
Yeah,
So you're right. I think disclosure is going to be a way of waking people up, but with that, will come probably collapse of systems. But it has to happen for it to be corrected.
and it's interesting as well. Even like talking about this disclosure when you've got um, high-ranking people who were in charge of some of these the programs, and they're they've came out like Lou Elizondo, for example. They were talking about um, what we talked about there about the existence of other civilizations here
Mm.
gone past. He says we've only got from what he's looked at and what he knows. Obviously, kind of divulge a lot of stuff, but he said if you look at our recordings, you could probably look at our recordings and digging wise and gone back through civilizations for what we can find. You can only maybe go back to about 7 or 8 thousand years, and then it gets a bit hazy after that.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah,
but I mean, like, but it's not to say there wasn't a lot of stuff before that, and he goes on to talk about um an influence in our DNA 70,000 years ago and things like that. And you think to
mm.
yourself, where is he getting that from? You know what I mean?
Mm.
This is a top
Yeah,
military guy, you know what I mean? And he's not just coming out with that with his own kind of he says things for a reason.
mm.
So it's interesting. I just think it all kind of it's good to see things like that link into
Mm.
a lot of different areas. You know what I mean? So it does kind of because before you probably even I'd say even before um 2017, you still had a lot of, for example, ufologists who wouldn't
Mm.
talk about, they were just totally nuts and bolts and they talk about anything else
Yes,
other than nuts and bolts. And
yes,
then
yeah,
they wouldn't talk about, like, people call it the woo factor. You would,
mm.
people wouldn't entertain cryptids, Bigfoot, anything like that at all.
Mm.
They wouldn't entertain, and you had all these different things, but people start to see we're going through like the John Keel method that
Yeah,
it's all part of the same ecosystem
yeah.
in some sense, you know what I mean? But it's
Yeah, I
interesting.
recommend people read his works because
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I mean he's a master of mystery, and he's looked at so many cases. I probably don't have to mention it here, but because he's so well known. But for me, when I came across his work, it was like, oh, thank God, somebody done this work.
Absolutely amazing. I mean,
You know?
the thing I found about John Keel is you could pick a John Keel book up now
Mm,
and read it, and it'd be relevant to what's happening today.
absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's the thing I always could find it. You just because I could mind you listening. I do a lot of audio listening to books and stuff like that as well as reading. I tend to audio and listen now because the fact that I do a bit of driving and stuff. And
yeah,
for the John Keel, I mean, a lot of his stuff basically just it's so relevant. in
yeah,
any kind of time frame.
yeah.
What's
I
happening?
was reading the 14 Times the other day, and they had an article about the Mothman in Kent.
Yeah.
Um, again, it's interesting. The location. This creature has been seen on by dozens of people at certain times over a period of time. Um, and again, it's an area that is full of fault lines. Balls of light have been seen in the area preceding the sighting. There's been a ball of light, as if, and that's a usual. Again, even John Keel would say that there's a link between the plasma balls of light, and these beings.
Mm.
It's all the ingredients are there in that Mothman's Tale in Kent,
Yeah.
which I found very interesting. So yeah, it's great. I think what's going on at the moment, there's lots of good research going on, and some great books that are around talking about plasma. Um, yeah, Robert Temple's book, excellent book. Um, I can't remember the name of it now. It's on. That's a great. It's his latest book, and it's about plasma, and he puts lots of links together,
Yeah.
links the psychic phenomena with some with plasma that are discovering,
Mhm.
and actually articulating it in a way that people start to understand.
Yeah.
That plasma is one of the fundamental and dynamic components of everything that exists,
Mhm.
and that we've actually come from plasma, and we're not heading towards plasma. We've come from plasma. We're heading back towards it,
Mhm.
because plasma is the core of the creation of the whole solar system. Many of the worlds out there are plasma planets. We are a carbon world living amongst a huge plasma arena. So it's like, why are we at such a low state of vibration? That's one of the questions you say. Why are all these higher vibrational worlds around us and we are of a low vibration?
Mhm.
And then I think you start to get into the spiritual stuff again. That is a deliberate environment for souls to learn. And
Yeah, I mean that definitely. That's the way it kind of seems like the recycling,
yeah,
reincarnation, and doing that for
yeah,
some learning process, or if I mean, trap for some kind of for some kind of process as well. I mean, but I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, definitely.
yeah. Well, there's a lot of things we're not allowed to know, and a lot of people have been silenced. And but it's I think we're coming to a time where a cusp now where things are beginning to change and systems are beginning to break down, and this knowledge is starting to come through. And so a lot of us feel more ease at talking about these things, because before we'd be ridiculed, and no one's going to believe me anyway because I'm not an academic. I have no qualifications, so um, whatever I do, if I put all this stuff out in a big way, I would easily be discredited.
But the thing is,
But
though.
I've got the freedom to look and decide. But it's up to people who listen to this or listen to anything to note and take what they need from it, because you need to do this journey yourself. It's like the Grail journey. You have to do it by yourself. Yeah, link with others and do that, but all the decisions and everything has to come from you, and not, oh, shall I do this? Tell me where to go, what to do, what stone do I need?
Mhm.
These are all these things we get questioned a lot, and really this is something people should do for themselves and use their own intuition and inner gut feeling, because that's what is my salvation in a way.
That's the thing as well in regards to the scientific method. It doesn't conform to any of this type of phenomena. I mean, it does to a certain point when you look at quantum physics and consciousness,
Yeah,
and things like
yeah,
that, right? 'Cause it's starting to converge a bit. But if you
yeah,
look at in the past, scientific methods not really worked because most the um this type of stuff in regards to the paranormal or like UFOs or whatever, has always
mm,
been based on witness testimony or experience. And
yes,
the scientific
mm,
method doesn't kind of go down that road. But
yeah,
if you took that stance and everything, then
mm,
you take witness testimony and other stuff about like things like where you were born, or of
mm,
who your parents are, and things like that.
yeah,
If you didn't go down that route, we couldn't believe in anything. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So there needs to be some type of kind of line drawn. But I think you're going. we're living in a time now where you're actually seeing a bit of convergence with it, and I think we'll jump past that. You know what I mean? I do.
Yeah.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
it's always going to be difficult when there are only a few percent of the population who are psychic and can see and hear and experience these things, and other people will not see it. I love cases like the one on the Isle of Wight, where a house appears every New Year's Eve, and it has been appearing for over 100 years. But every year it appears, it's there's a little bit less of it, as if the battery is running out.
Mhm.
And so lots of people go there to this viewing spot and look for this house. And out of 50 people, 5 or 10 will see it, and the
Mhm.
rest won't. And the person stood next to him will be seeing it, experiencing it, and he'll be looking at that person and think, well, I can't see it. Are you mad, or am I mad? Why can't I see it? Why do you see it and I don't see it? It's little things like that. That is the problem.
Mhm.
For people like us, we see and know these things, but if you don't, how can we prove it to you
Mhm. That's it. Yeah, that is it.
without science?
Mhm. Well, hopefully we get there with it at some point. Um,
Well, I think there's enough of us now.
yeah, no,
There's
that's the
enough.
thing. There's enough of people out there and trying
Yeah,
to, as you say, writing books and
yeah,
people talking about it and try to get the conversation going a
yeah,
bit. I mean, people have been doing that for like the age, but I think there's more and more people doing it now and getting a bit more traction with it. So hopefully we can,
yeah,
it does get a bit more traction. And
yeah.
in regards to, I will put all your books and your link to your website in the show note if you want to just say it in audio wise where people can find you, things like that. In
Yeah,
regards to your website and that and stuff like that.
yes, which is www.bellinusline or bellinusline.com, all one word, bellinusline, BELINUSLINE.com. That will get you through to the information pages about what we do, what the books contain, reviews, and how to buy the book if you want signed copies. Otherwise, they're on usual eBay, Amazon, which as a bookseller, I loathe, but they have got the market.
Yeah.
Um, uh, but yeah, I do. I try and get people, because we are self-employed and we spend all our money on these books.
To try and direct
Buying
people
it
to the website.
buying it directly from us gives us a little bit more money,
Yeah, yeah, I understand.
but because we're not, because of the way we live and the amount of traveling we've done, the amount of you can imagine the amount of work we've done on the spine of Albion and the Holy Axis, the amount of time and money. It's never been for the money. It's never been about materialism for us. It's about the passion to uncover the unknown, and guidance as well. Because all these books we've been kind of given divine guidance for, and we know we're not mad. Most people who know us are not mad. In fact, most of the people we know can also sense and feel and douse these energies as we can.
Mm.
So we're kind of a small group of people that are struggling, but that's what we're about. The passion, really, I suppose.
What's next
We
for you?
still have to work for a living, of course, but
Yeah. What's next for you in regards to research?
um, we're I was the Avebury thing has been going around in my head, because with anything, I find these things out psychically. I get told about them, I see them, and then I have to think, oh God, how am I going to write about this? So I'm looking for evidence to back up what I've already seen about the real purpose of places like Avebury, Stonehenge, Silbury Hill, particularly Silbury Hill.
Mhm.
That place is a real calling spot for many psychic people, and there's rather like Camp Apple, I suppose, and some other
Yeah.
places. They're kind of places that call people, and they affect people like us. They sometimes charge us up and make us even more psychic if we're there at the right time, the right spot. And that's key with all sacred sites, is being there at the right time, sometimes saying the right words or sounds. Timing is key with a lot. And often I say to people, how do we know what's the time to be at a certain place? I said, well, sometimes the monument will tell you what time. The ancients laid out a code of recognition of these, of when to be there by the orientation of these mounds or these barrows or these tumuluses or certain sight lines. So, look for the clues and you'll find ways to connect. But I'm looking at some of the mysteries of Silbury Hill, and I've been reading a lot about it lately and discovering that it wasn't a hill built as an effigy. It was not a goddess hill that was built so that the ancients could admire it, their achievements. This hill has a function exactly like the pyramids in Egypt. Not exactly like the pyramids in Egypt, but it has a function the same way. They are, in a way, they're not machines, but they're kind of organic machines, if you like, and they had a purpose. And I discovered through the dreams I'd had when I stayed very close to Silbury Hill, one of the reasons why the hill was erected. And I realized that the key was about the time and what was going on. And I realized that, and I found the information from different parts of the world, and people have been writing similar things, and then about plasma and earth energies and other things to do cataclysms, and I'm putting it all together now. So that's coming up. But also we're off to Mexico to do some sort of global serpent line sort of stuff. That seems to be an intuitive thing at the moment. So I'm not sure what's going to come out of that until we've actually done it. So yeah, and of course we're having a kind of a year off because we've been writing non-stop since, well, not non-stop, but we've been writing since 2005 when we started the Spine of Albion. And every year all our spare time has gone into the research and compiling all for the 3 books. So this year is a kind of a year to explore a bit and find new things. So that's what we're up to this year.
Oh, so very interesting. Listen, it's been really interesting having you on, and it was like a great chat with you. So I appreciate your time, and I'll put the links in the show notes. Thanks again for listening, everyone. That's a wrap tonight, and don't forget to subscribe, share, and like the content if you like it, that is. And also even leave a review. It helps with the algorithms, helps us grow, and brings more content to the show. Thanks again, and catch you all soon.